Today we are going to look at the languages spoken by the ethnic groups. But before we look at the languages that are being spoken by the different ethnic groups in Uganda, I want us to first go back to the work that we had last week. So I want us first go through, we check, you identify where the mistakes are, then you can make some correction. Like now when I was marking your books of primary 4, there are some of you are sending incomplete work. You have work, but some questions, there are no answers. You have poor handwriting. The organization of your work is not good. So I'm just requesting you that the lesson for this week and even other weeks, make sure you improve on the handwriting and even the organization of your work. So if you remember, in the previous lesson, we looked at the major ethnic groups in Uganda, where we looked at the Nilo-Hamites, and we said that the Nilo-Hamites are also called the plain Nilotes. The Nilo-Hamites entered Uganda through the northeastern direction. Then if you look at your activity, there is where I asked you to give the occupation. If they ask you the occupation of the Nilo-Hamites, the occupation of the River Lake Nilotes, the occupation of the Hamites, the answer should be cattle keeping. You can either write cattle keeping or you write the pastoralism. The spelling of the word pastoralism is P-A-S-T-O-R-A-L-I-S-M. So you can either write pastoralism or cattle keeping as their economic activity. Then if they ask you about the occupation of the Bantu, we say that the Bantu were crop cultivators, meaning their occupation was crop cultivation. Then we also looked at the Hamites. I told you that the Hamites formed the smallest population in Uganda. And even looked at the examples of Hamites in Uganda. I told you we have the Bahima, and we also have the Basita, and also the Batusi. So we have the Bahima, we have the Basita, and we also have the Batusi as the examples of the Hamites in Uganda. Then what was their occupation? The occupation of the Hamites was cattle keeping. Also you can say pastoralism. Then we also looked at other ethnic groups. So my dear children of primary 4, just get your lesson notes. You are ever picking the hard copy, the work is there. So endeavor to go through and you check. Then today, I want to introduce the lesson for today. We have just been now reviewing, checking about the work that we had in the other previous lesson. So today we are going to look at the languages that are spoken by the ethnic groups. Remember we talked of the examples of ethnic groups in Uganda, where we talked of the Bantu, we talked of the plain Nilotes, we talked of the River Lake Nilotes, we talked of the Hamites. Then there's where I gave you NB. If you look at Uganda, that part of West Nile, we have the Sudanic people. The Sudanic people entered Uganda through West Nile. So if you look at that part of the Albert Nile, from Lake Albert now going up, we have that Albert Nile. So that part here was occupied by the Sudanic people. So here we have some of the languages that are spoken by the ethnic groups. We have very many tribes in Uganda, but I've just summarized for you, then we'll add on. So if you look at our first tribe, and the languages which are spoken by the ethnic groups, one we have Baganda. If you look at the central part of Uganda, we have the Baganda. And the commonest language, which is in the central part of Uganda, is Luganda. Then the tribe, Baganda. So we have Baganda as a tribe, and the language that is being used there is Luganda. And the Baganda are under Bantu ethnic group. Remember I said that the Bantu forms the largest population in Uganda. Then we have Basoga. Basoga as a tribe, then the language is Lusoga. So Lusoga is the language, then the tribe is Basoga. Where do you find Basoga in Uganda? The Basoga are found in the eastern part of Uganda. Especially we have some districts where you can find the Basoga. Like now we have Wigan district, we have Mayuge district, we have Bijiri district, we have Kamule district, etc. So there are many districts in Uganda, in the eastern part of Uganda, where people are using Lusoga as their language. So the language used there is Lusoga, then the tribe is Basoga. Remember, the Basoga are also under Bantu ethnic group. Then you also have the Bagisu. Bagisu are also under the Bantu ethnic group. What's the language? The language used, they say Rugisu. You can either write Rugisu or you can say Rumasaba. So if you look at these two, if you don't want to use the word Rugisu, then you can call it to be Rumasaba. So the language is Rugisu or Rumasaba. Then the Bagisu are under the Bantu ethnic group. Where do you find the Bagisu? See in the eastern part of Uganda. But which districts? We have Mbale, we have Sironko, we have Manafa. So those are some of the districts where you can define the Bagisu in Uganda. Then we have the Iteso. If you remember all the examples of the plain Nilotes, we looked at the Iteso as an example. So under plain Nilotes, we talked of the Iteso, we talked of the Langi, we talked of the Karimojong, and we also talked of Kumam and Jai. Now the language that we are looking at is Iteso. I mean as a tribe, the tribe is Ites, then the language used is Ateso. So Ates is the language. Then Iteso is a tribe. Now they can ask you, under which ethnic group do the Iteso belong? So the Iteso are under the Plain Nilotes. Then you have the Bachiga. The Bachiga are under the Bantu ethnic group. So the Bachiga, where do you find the Bachiga in Uganda? Western part of Uganda. What's the language? The language used there is Ruchiga. So the tribe is Bachiga, then the language is Ruchiga. I hope you are following. Then we have another tribe. We have the Karimojong. Look at the spelling of the word Karimojong. It is Karimojong. The word is Karimojong. Where do you find the Karimojong? The Karimojong are found in the northeastern part of Uganda. Under which ethnic group do the Karimojong belong? The Karimojong are under the Plain Nilotes. Now they can ask you, how are the Karimojong and the Iteso similar in terms of ethnicity? The word ethnicity is from the word ethnic. So if you look at the Karimojong and the Iteso, these two tribes are under the Plain Nilotes. So if you look at the Karimojong, what's the language? The language spoken or the language used is a Karimojong. So just add letter A. You begin with A, then you add the word Karimojong. So the tribe is Karimojong. Then the language used is a Karimojong. Where do you find this tribe? In northeastern part of Uganda. Under which ethnic group do the Karimojong belong? The Karimonjongs are under the Plain Nilotes. They also have another tribe called the Acholi. The Acholi are found in the northern Uganda. Which district? Like now you can talk of Guru district. So if you look at Guru, Guru is a district found in the northern part of Uganda. So the tribe, we are talking of the Karimonjong, I mean the Acholi as the tribe. Then you see the language is called the Acholi, not Rucholi. So the tribe Acholi, the language also Acholi. Then under which ethnic group do you find the Acholi? The Acholi are under the River Lake Nilotes. Remember, the River Lake Nilotes are also called the Luo speakers, or they are called the Nilotics. So the Acholi are under the River Lake Nilotes. Then you also have the Basamia. Basamia is a Bantu tribe found in the eastern part of Uganda. Which district? The major district is Busia. And Busia is on the border of Uganda and Kenya. So we have the Basamia. The Basamia are under Bantu tribe or Bantu ethnic group. So if you look at the tape here, we have the Basamia under which ethnic group? The Bantu ethnic group. Now what's the language? The language spoken is called the Basamia. So the language is Basamia, then the tribe is Basamia. Which district? Busia, in the eastern part of Uganda. We also have the Banyoro. Banyoro is a tribe, then the language is Runyoro. So Banyoro are found in the western part of Uganda. Under which ethnic group do the Banyoro and the Basamia belong? So if you look at these two tribes, Basamia and Banyoro are under Bantu ethnic group. Now, after looking at some of the tribal groups in Uganda, some of the examples of the tribes in Uganda, then you can also look at the traditional leaders. Now, when you look at the traditional leaders, we are looking at the leaders or people who are heading the cultural institutions. Like now we can talk of the kingdoms. So under traditional leaders, we are going to look at some of the examples of kingdoms in Uganda and even the title given to their leaders. But before looking at the examples of kingdoms in Uganda, they can ask you that what is a kingdom? So my beloved children of primary 4, when you are defining a kingdom, you say a kingdom is an area of land ruled by a king or a queen. So you are saying that a kingdom is an area ruled by a king or a queen. Could be a king or could be a queen. Like an example, if you look at Uganda as a kingdom. So if you look at the examples of kingdoms in Uganda, one, we are talking of Uganda kingdom. So we have what title is given to the king of Uganda. So the title given to the king of Uganda is Kabaka. Kabaka is the title given to the king of Uganda. Now where do you find Uganda kingdom? Uganda kingdom is located in the central part of Uganda. And Uganda kingdom is the largest kingdom in Uganda. But if you look at this kingdom, Buganda kingdom began as the smallest kingdom, but after getting the guns from the Arab traders, the leaders or the kings of Uganda went on expanding their kingdom. That's why today we call Buganda kingdom to be the largest kingdom in Uganda. Then, so if you look at this kingdom, Buganda, we see the title given their leader is Kabaka. Then we have the second kingdom, and that's Busoga kingdom. Remember, if you look at Busoga kingdom began as a chiefdom. A chiefdom is an area ruled by a chief. So Busoga kingdom began as a chiefdom. Then later it became a kingdom. Where do we find Busoga kingdom? In the eastern part of Uganda. Now if you look at this Busoga kingdom, what name is given to their king? So the name given to their king is Chabazinga. We have the word Chabazinga. Chabazinga. So my beloved children of primary 4, if you have ever read the source of River Nile, or if you have ever crossed River Nile, once you cross that River Nile, the name given to the king of that area is, the title given to the king of that area is Chabazinga. So Chabazinga is a title given to the king of Busoga kingdom. But remember, I have told you that Busoga kingdom began as a chiefdom, and today is called a kingdom. Then we also have Toro kingdom. Where do we find Toro kingdom? Toro kingdom is found in the western part of Uganda. What name, what title is given to the king of Toro? So if you look at the king of Toro, is called the Omukama. Omukama is a title given to the king of Toro. Then we can also look at the next one is Bunyoro Kingdom. So we have Bunyoro Kingdom. Bunyoro Kingdom. What title is given to the king of Bunyoro? So if you look at Bunyoro Kingdom and Toro Kingdom, they have the same title, and that is the Omukama. So we have Omukama and the Bunyoro Kingdom, and we also have Omukama and the Toro Kingdom. So if you look at these two kingdoms are found in the western part of Uganda, and they have the same title. The title given to their kings is Omukama. Omukama, Toro, then Omukama also under Bunyoro Kingdom. And you can also look at another kingdom, and that is the Ankole. So if you look at Ankole Kingdom, they have a title which is given to their king, and that is Omugabe. We have Omugabe. So Omugabe is a title given to the king of Ankole. So after looking at the kingdom and the title of their cultural leaders, so we can go through and we check. We began with the languages spoken by the ethnic groups in Uganda, but I said that I've given you few, then you can also add on. Remember, I always encourage you to use the comprehensive atlas. And if you remember, the question that I'm ever sending, most of the answers are in that atlas. So, my dear children of primary 4, if you don't have a comprehensive atlas, then it's better you request your parent to buy for you. This information is found in the comprehensive atlas. If you don't have comprehensive, then still you can use the MK. So these are some of the languages and even the tribes that are being used in Uganda. So if you look at the Baganda, the language is Luganda. Basoga, Lusoga. Bagisu, Rugisu or Rumasaba. Iteso, Ateso. Bachiga, Ruchiga. Karimojong, Akarimojong. Achore, Achore. Basamia, Rusamia. Banyoro, Orunyoro. Then you have the traditional leaders and even the names given to their kingdoms. But I want to remind you that we are going to use the comprehensive atlas. You check from page 27 up to page 72. You are going to find that information there. I've given you a few kingdoms in Uganda, but we have other kingdoms. Like now they can ask you, what title is given to the king of Rwenzururu? We also have Rwenzururu as a kingdom. Which part of Uganda? This one is in the western part of Uganda. Which district? Kasese district. Now they can ask you, what title is given to the king of Rwenzururu? So the title is Omusinga. Omusinga is the title given to the king of Rwenzururu. So there are very many kingdoms in Uganda, but I've just given you few. Then I'm requesting you that if you are using the comprehensive atlas, now you are going to check even the tradition, the name given to these kings. Like now if you look at Buganda kingdom, who is the current king of Buganda kingdom? Who is the current king of Busoga kingdom? Who is the current king of Toro kingdom? And also these other kingdoms, we have Bunyoro kingdom, we have Ankole kingdom, then I've also talked about Rwenzururu kingdom. So if you look at the activity, there's a way I advised you that you are supposed to use the atlas and even I indicated the page. So if you look at the activity that I sent, so you are going to check on that activity. That activity is on the hard copy. So you come and get the hard copy, then you look at the questions. If you look at those questions, you are going to find the current, where I ask you to give the current kings of these kingdoms. So you are going to use the comprehensive atlas to check more about the kingdoms and even the title given to these kingdoms. Then I also want to look at a clan. They can ask you what a clan is. A clan is a group of people under one forefather or under one ancestor. So we have the spelling of the word ancestor. If the word ancestor is hard for you, then you can use the word forefather. F-O-R-A, then you have father. So they can ask you what a clan is. What is a clan? A clan is a group of people under one ancestor. Then we have the symbols of a clan. Symbols of a clan. What can we give are the symbols of a clan? Yes, you can talk of a clan name. We have a clan name. Now, my dear children of primary 4, you try to share with your parents. Ask your parent about the name of your clan and what is your totem. Remember, we have totem and also have taboo. So after mentioning the name of your clan, then you ask the parent also to give you the totem. So we have a clan name. We can also talk of, we have Grammy. Grammy as also a symbol of a clan. Then what else can we give? We also have the totem. So these are some of the symbols of a clan. So my beloved children of primary 4, before I end today's lesson, I want to remind you about the activity. You are going to come and get the hard copy from the office. Then you go through the questions. Otherwise, I want to thank you for listening to me.